Hey there. I'm really glad you're here in the Sink and Swim podcast. Before we get into today's episode, a little housekeeping. I want to help you get oriented just so you know where you are, how the space works, and how to take care of yourself while you're listening. So first, a gentle invitation. As you listen or watch, see if you can listen not only with your ears or watch with your eyes, but also by noticing what's going on inside your body. And that may change throughout the whole episode. And as you notice, permission to know you don't need to fix anything, you don't need to analyze it, but just notice it. Some parts of you might feel seen. Some might feel exposed. Some parts might feel resistance or concern about what we're saying. Other parts might feel relief, encouragement, or they might want to reach through and help us or hug me if it's just me talking. So notice how you feel as you settle in, whether you're listening in a quiet place or out on a walk or driving or in the middle of something, and also how you feel when you're done. That noticing is a really sacred work. And after you listen to the episode and notice, if you find yourself feeling the tug to stay connected to me or to the podcast or to any of my guests, please make sure to check the show notes and also make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening right now. Now is a great time to go hit that subscribe button. And I'm not asking that for numbers, but because it lets the episodes find you without you having to remember or keep track. And if you like having something you can read or revisit or sit with more slowly, you can also subscribe to my newsletter, and that's in the show notes as well. You can also find clips and highlights on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Substack, and Facebook. All different platforms, different doorways to the same house. So choose whatever feels easiest for you. At any point today, later, or months from now, if something in you starts whispering, I feel this nudge inside. My life or my work looks really good on paper. Everything I've built should feel good, but that's not how I feel. And sometimes that can be a sign that it's time for deeper support and reorientation. And that's where working with me in a soul story mapping session comes in. It's a private one-on-one session, not a discovery call, not a sales conversation. It's an actual coaching space to map what's true for you right now and get clear on what wants to shift. Even if you don't do anything with it, we're just going to map it out. All of the links to all of those things live in the show notes, so you don't have to hold any of this in your head, but I'm saying it now to orient you in case you're listening and something comes up and you want to know where to go next. Okay, let's drop into today's episode now. All right, welcome to this episode of the Sink and Swim podcast. I am super pumped to have Ashley Martinez here with us today. We were just chatting off screen, off mic, about our philosophy on vulnerability and sharing stories and being yourself and the challenges that come with that and the freedom that comes with that, and how we both have a high suspicion for when people aren't showing their vulnerable sides now and kind of show the polished, put together expert facade all the time, that maybe that's not the greatest thing. And I feel like that was such a good intro to meet each other for the first time, but also to the whole point of this podcast, Sink and Swim. It's all about sinking into the juicy, deep stuff that makes you who you are. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so first question I'm going to ask is, tell us about you without telling us what you do.
So I was actually telling a friend yesterday, they asked me, did I look at the questions ahead of time? And I said, no, because one of my pet peeves is when people rehearse, like what they're going to say. And then you admit what you were just talking about, you immediately get this like ick factor. So I had to think really hard because I am totally guilty of introducing myself as like this.
Mm-hmm.
I love women and I have a very deep story myself. So I consider myself a friend and a healer to the women around me, my patients, my clients, my friends, my daughter, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I do define myself by this because this is a huge part of who I am and what created where I am right now. I'm a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a wannabe entrepreneur. And yeah, so that I'm an HSP. Oh, I should lead with that. A huge part of who I am. So I'm a highly sensitive person. I feel very deeply, and I think that serves me in this season of my life where I didn't think it did before.
Oh man, it serves you so much. I am too also, and I have really come to terms with it being a superpower. Sometimes we were just talking off screen about how you're like, "Oh, I'm going to cry today." Well, I guess I'm going to need to rearrange my day. um, that can sometimes feel inconvenient, right? And or you've got to figure out how to be present with that amongst other people, right? And who might not always understand, but that's its own journey. And I think it's such a superpower that, to that point we were just talking about like people who hide their vulnerability behind a facade of certainty or expert or whatever it is. Not that they're not expert at something, but it's always there and it always leads. Is I think it's my body that picks up on it, right?
Absolutely.
I had to learn my own, like I was doing it, were you doing it too? Was it like you're leading with expert and facade, like perfect and certain as well?
And Brene Brown is my girl. She is
Yeah.
one of my absolute favorite. And she always talks about like she goes in with her intellectual armor. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what that is. Yeah, 100%. One of the first times I caught myself doing it was when I opened Feminine and Flourishing. And I was cold plunging. I was playing around with cold plunging and I videoed myself and I did it just to be vulnerable and to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I sent it to my sister and I was like, I can't post this. Like, look at me. I can't post it. And my sister goes, okay. She's 4 years younger than me. I'm 40. She goes, no one wants to see a cut 40-some-year-old jumping in cold plunge. They want to see a little bit of flab going on and they want to see you rolling in that cold plunge and showing like what it actually is like and why you're doing it and just jump in there, sports bra and everything. And I was like, you're so right. Like, that's what I would want to see. I want to see this unput together female just being like, this is what I'm doing today and taking a dive. Yeah.
So true.
Like the epitome of vulnerability, right? Like physical as well as emotional. And I ended up posting it and I was like, oh my gosh, but that's what I would want to see in other women. It lets me trust them. It makes me feel like they're really genuine.
Does it not also help you trust yourself, right? When you see it in someone else, where you see someone with their flabby 40-something-year-old body doing whatever it is, and I mean, good for you. I mean, because the vulnerability there is for you decades, if not lifetimes of conditioning that you've been taught as a woman to be small and perfect and prim and polished and I love that your sister kind of brought that reality check in. And I so resonate because I am in my 40s. My body is changing. It's still like pretty athletic looking. Most people would be like, oh, that's a very trim, like, quote, healthy body, right? But it's different to me. And every day I'm like, well, that's softer than it once was, or that's thicker than it once was. My clothes don't fit the same, And I love seeing videos of people who are younger than me, even who are like, this is what an actual woman's body looks like,
Right.
And I'm like, thank you for that. I now feel safer in my own by seeing something reflected back to me that isn't what the gurus and the experts and the polished people tell you it's supposed to look like.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like you said, it's hard to give myself the permission to embrace that imperfection.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And I feel like that gets harder mentally as we get into our 40s. But to a point, it gets a little bit easier emotionally. I don't know if you feel that way or not. It's very freeing. And it's almost like, this is me. This is me. My life experiences have gotten me here. My journey has gotten me here. I wouldn't be who I am without all of that. So that's a great thing.
You're right. You're so right. It's both. It's extremely vulnerable. And the emotion that comes with the vulnerability gets louder coming into your 40s for lots of reasons, but we don't need to get into all the mechanisms of that. And the emotion of, you know what? It's fine. And or it's not that you don't care, but you can't care. You just don't have the capacity to like give a damn around that anymore and to buy in to the conditioning. It's like, I don't have, sometimes it's, I don't have energy because that's the stage I'm in. Sometimes it's, I just can't be bothered with that anymore, or I don't believe it. I don't believe it anymore. I see that it's a conditioning that or something that I subscribed to and didn't realize I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So good. Well, beautiful. I'm curious, like with that and being highly sensitive and being a deep feeler and your radar's up, for those types of people too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you someone who values like in just your everyday connections, more vulnerability, more depth? How do you feel about small talk, all that kind of stuff?
I hate small talk. I can't do it. And I actually didn't know that I hated small talk until I was many years into being a clinician. And oh gosh, it just gives me the heebie jeebies when I have to bring a patient back and be like, so how are you doing today? Oh my gosh, was it raining out? So I would so much rather be like, so what brings you here? Like, tell me a story. And that, number one, again, establishes trust. But number two, you're creating a real connection with another human being. That's what you talk about like what your body craves. That's what my body craves is true human connection. And it doesn't have to be pretty and it doesn't have to, tell an amazing story. No, just be a human being with me.
Yeah.
Be honest, be authentic, and just the small talk. To me, I'd rather not speak.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't need to.
No. And I guess that's my biggest goal is for my patients and my clients and my friends and people who know me well to be comfortable in that silence. And it's taken me a really long time to be comfortable in that silence. Again, the older I get, the more I'm like, no, less is absolutely more. I don't need to fill the void anymore. And that discomfort, I totally learned this in therapy. That discomfort, it allows you to sit with it and just observe it instead of panic and be like, what do I say next? What do I do next? No, just be in it for a minute. That's such a huge life lesson for me. The experiences that I've had, I've always, you're always waiting for the bad stuff to move. And the reality is everything's always constantly moving. Nothing is stagnating. You're just trying to not be present with it because it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
But when you be present with it, that's where the growth happens and that's where the resilience happens. And that's what I want to emanate to people. And that's what I want them to let me see as well. Because when you see that in each other, that's when healing happens too. I feel like in all aspects. In the most chronic conditions, I mean, connection is everything, I feel like. And I feel like that's what most people don't have.
Connection. I mean, connection with each other on a human level, like you said, from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And not that how's the weather isn't human, but I think that just anyone who's like, why don't you ask them? What's wrong with the question? It's not the question,
It's
right?
No.
Maybe that is how you lead with someone, right? Like you genuinely want to know how the weather is.
Yeah.
But I think
love
that,
by the way.
right. Yep, totally. There's nothing wrong with small, like actually leading with that to everyone listening. But I think it's the more the intention and the energy behind it of I love how we opened this before we were on and you were like, I'm nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was like, hey, me too. It's like, there's the connection point right there. We jumped right to vulnerability because we're both ready and open and practiced and been through the therapy and the things to be okay with it. But, I can't imagine how I would feel if I walked into a medical appointment and someone said, hey, how are you actually feeling about this test you're about to have?
I would fall over.
Do you want to talk about it for a minute? And I actually can remember a time that I was getting a mammogram before I was like of age to get mammograms. So I had some things show up early and a nurse brought me back and sat me down and was like walking me through. So, hey, I'm just going to walk you through like what to expect. Like it was so good. And she said, she put her hand on mine and she said, how are you feeling about this? Total stranger. I don't think I remembered her name,
That question. Yes.
And I was like, I think that was just the one time when I look back on it and I'm like, why don't we do this more? These are humans we're talking to, not.
And it gets lost. It gets lost in the translation of treating people, because we're really not. I'm pretty sure it was Jessica Drummond, who said this. And gosh, I never forget this. She said, we are not healing. We are creating the environment for healing to be done. And that like blew my mind, because I thought, whoa, okay, that embraces humility, and that embraces the space where healing occurs. I'm not doing something magical to create, a new state for you. You're doing it. Your body is doing it. Your mind is doing it. I'm just helping you create that environment through many different things. And I notice now, I used to get really frustrated as a newer clinician, especially with younger women who would come in and I'm trying to ask them questions and they're good, fine. And you're asking because you don't really know what's going on. But now, as a more seasoned clinician, I love asking the question, tell me more. Tell me more. Because number one, it leads with curiosity and not judgment. We're not here trying to, pull pieces together. And number two, it's giving them the space to tell me what they feel comfortable telling me. But at the same time, I think communicating like, I need you to open up to me if you want me to open up to you. So I love that statement, tell me more. That is a go-to for me. And I also think it's a little bit of an icebreaker, because it's so easy for us to look at people and be like, how are you today? Good, how are you? How do you feel? I feel good. And then you're dead end. There's nowhere to go from there.
Yeah. It's not a one word, it's an open-ended question, but how are you is also the thing about how are you is it can end in a dead end of I'm good, immediate. Okay, well, that part of the conversation's done. Tell me more. I love that. It's so permission giving.
I love that. Or say more. Those are my takeaways. But my goodness, the more I use it, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, people actually open up after that statement. And then not only can you move in the direction that you need to move in, they're more willing to come with you.
Yeah.
They're more willing to participate, whether that be in a physical intervention or whether that be just emotionally, they're there with you. And I think that's really important, because let's just be honest for a moment. When people don't trust and like you, their bodies are not going to trust or like you, and they're not going to get healing. They're not going to.
Intimacy and healing 101.
Yeah. Yes. You and I were talking about leading with that intellectual armor. I think when we put that down for a minute and allow ourselves to say like, hey, listen, I've never been where you are, but I've been in some tough spots and I get it. It's super uncomfortable. So give yourself the permission to just be there and tell me what you'd like to tell me when you're ready. And that does, oh my gosh, I feel like that does more than any intervention I was taught in school or anywhere else. Like just giving that permission for them to lead as they feel.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think you don't have to have gone through, like you said, the same thing for that trust and even to be established. It helps a little when you're like, yeah, you totally get what it's like to have been through XYZ. But at the same time, two people could have diabolically different experiences with those things. One person sees it as the most horrible traumatic experience of their life and they haven't recovered from it. And one person's like, oh, that was actually kind of great.
Right.
That's going to be a very different energy around it. And if you lead, even that is leading with expertise of, well, I've been through this. And so I know what you're going through. Why? How would you know?
There's wisdom. There's wisdom in knowing what you don't know.
Yeah. Amen. To that so much, because you can only be curious from there. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, segue, you mentioned that, well, I've been through some stuff and, I think I'm with you, me too. And I think that, as we were just saying, it's not the thing on the surface that you've been through, it's the journey through and it's the process and who you became in the process and what you let go of and all those things. I'm curious what you're willing to speak on around personal life, things you've been through of, you said single motherhood, relationships. What would feel good to illustrate your process, your journey, your story?
So I had to reflect a lot on this the past several days. Personally, we all think our stories are so individualized to us, and they are. But when you start sharing with other people, you start to see how normalized it is to be abnormal,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am a completely different person than I was 10 or 15 years ago. And it's 100% my experiences. But I would say I'm relatively open, but actually you are likely going to be the first one to hear some juicy stuff that I've lived through and that I would like to share because I don't think it's talked about enough. And it's really helped me grow in, oh my gosh, I can't even explain how many ways. So, like I said, I'm a single mother. My daughter is 9 years old. So when I had her, her father was deployed. And later, very shortly after I had her, he had told me he didn't want to be married anymore. He wasn't even home from the deployment yet. And I later found out about multiple infidelities.
Mm-hmm.
So being a single mom throws you into that. It is all on me. It is all on me.
Truly.
Who else is it going to be on? There's nobody else. However, it's all unfolding. It's all unfolding the way it should have, And I'll explain that. In the first 3 years, I was in complete fight or flight. Every way that you could think of that a, single mother would manifest fight or flight, I manifested. I worked like crazy only to pay my babysitters because I was too in my head to put my daughter into a daycare. I was terrified. So I paid sitters to come to my home. I worked, I think at one point I had 5 PRN positions to try to bring in an income to keep her in a safe apartment with a view so that she wouldn't remember any of the tough stuff. But the reality is her and I slept on the floor of my apartment the first almost 2 months because I couldn't afford we lived in Florida, Orlando, Florida, and I'm here in West Virginia. And we couldn't afford to have our stuff delivered because there was no money left in the savings that had been taken out. So we slept on the floor, me, her, and the dog, on a blow-up bed with my 10-month-old at the time. Mm-hmm. And I would go to work and the babysitters would come and they would take care of my baby. And I would come home and I would just fall apart, and whatever is part of that. Fast food, lack of exercise, lots and lots and lots of mental distress. And then in 3 years, I had started to hit a groove, which I think we all do eventually. But a groove doesn't mean health, right? Mm-hmm. A groove doesn't mean you're doing okay. A groove means you have found the path in the chaos and you've learned how to move forward out of it. Right? So I hit a groove and I absolutely was fueled by bitterness and hatred and a little bit of woe is me. I'm not going to lie,
I would expect it. No doubt.
Yeah. And at the time I didn't really see that, but it was 100% there. And I had found a good church. And I had found an outlet for movement. So I'd started some CrossFit, and dating was not at all on my radar because in my mind, I was broken. I came from a home, the oldest of 3. I lived in an absolute authoritarian home, not authoritative, where I was demanded to be the best all the time, the smartest, all of the accolades, all of the things that you would think of daughter would be made to happen.
Oh, yeah.
So in that sense, there was no option to fail. I actually had a serious falling out with my parents because they couldn't, I used to think that they couldn't see the pain, but I don't think they could handle the pain. There's
definitely a difference.
There's a difference. And the older you get, the more you move out of that anger and that sometimes hate. And you see your parents for who they are, which is a human being that had parents that didn't raise them perfectly. And you follow that trend. So I had a falling out with my parents. I did not have my parents' support for a really long time. And then when I did have their support, there was a lot of gaslighting and, oh, just get over it, just move on, just move forward. So there was a lot of dysfunction in the immediacy of what my daughter and I were handling. You get the first 2 years of any child's life, they're getting everything under the sun. They're sick, they're this, they're that, there were hospital stays. I was very ill when I had her. So that's when I developed my autoimmune conditions. And I was absolutely terrified. I was putting my daughter in an environment where she would develop those same conditions. So as we moved out of those first 3 years, the transition from fight or flight, woe is me, I can do this, I'm super strong, I'm super weak, this is awful, this is awesome. Like there was just a lot going on in those first 3 years. I'm a badass, I suck. Like, all of the thoughts that go through your mind when you're going through difficult things, the lessons, they were unmatched. They were unmatched. Whether you are a faith-oriented person or you're an energy person or you are a person that thinks none of that exists, there was just no doubt in my mind that there was guidance and there were blessings and there were glimmers and there were angels and there were people helping me through those very, very difficult moments. Anything from financial to spiritual, where, the right people come at the right time. Those first 3 years were tough. They were the toughest years, I would say, financially and mentally for me, but the emotional years came after. I had mentioned that my ex-husband had been unfaithful, and he actually remained in Florida while her and I moved back to West Virginia, which is where I'm from. And I was just not interested in men. I actually, if I'm being honest with myself, like I said, I didn't feel worthy of a man. My body was completely wrecked. My mind would probably never go back. And now I'm so grateful for that. But at the time, you think, my goodness, nobody's going to want me. I have a child that I'm raising alone. There are good men out there. And there are really awful ones. And sometimes they're one and the same. And I got to experience that firsthand. I've only dated one man since my divorce. He was my absolute number one cheerleader. And he was also a source of trauma for me. I was carrying trauma from the divorce and from the unfaithfulness. And it turns out that this man too was unfaithful as well as dishonest. He was actually married. Yes, ma'am. So there was a lot. There was a lot. And I actually have never said that out loud. I've never said that publicly. The reason I think it's so important to say these things out loud is because the torment, the judgment, the self-loathing, it's so hard to see in the moment that it's the refiner's fire.
Yeah.
It's so hard to see in the moment that sometimes horrible things happen for our betterment.
Yeah.
And it's also so hard to see when you've never seen it before. When my husband cheated on me, quite literally, I used to sit with my daughter and think, what kind of woman would do that? What kind of woman would know? And there were different circumstances. One knew, one did not know about me and my daughter. And to be on the other end of that, to find out you're on the other end of that, not only is it a humbling experience, but the perspective that life experience gives you, it's invaluable. It's invaluable because now you begin to see people as fallible human beings who all have their own story and who all see things from their vantage point. I would have never seen that before.
Yeah.
I can actually think about the women now that my husband was with and truly, truly be curious of how lonely were they? Like, what were they going through? What was their life experience before meeting my ex-husband? Were they ever a single mom like I was? What was their support system like?
Yeah.
And it just, it would have never crossed my mind before because in my story, they were the demons. They were the bad guys. But in someone else's story, I was the bad.
Oof.
And so in the midst of all of that, There were several other challenges. I ended up carrying that for a very long time, very long time. And like I said, it's so funny to listen to other people now, talk about infidelity and talk about divorce and talk about really tough stuff, because there's a villain and there's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not true.
Mm-hmm. I know.
It's just not true. So the man that was the villain in my story, he was also my hero, because he pulled me out of the depths of my depression. He showed me that I could be loved. He was my very best friend when I didn't even know that existed, and he has his own story. He has his own story as to why he went down that path. And his wife had her story as to why they went down that path together. And it's just so, it's so humbling. It's so humbling to know that it happens more often than not. And people aren't bad usually.
Yeah.
They're broken.
They're broken.
And they're looking for healing.
There's so much less evil in the world than we think, than the narratives will make it out to be.
There's so much more love than hate. I truly believe that. But in my story, there was a time where, gosh, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see, like, why is this all happening? There's a part of most of us, I feel, that we think we're owed. Like, we went through the bad, so now give me the good. But that's just not how life works. I think we're given the choice to figure out how we handle all of these challenges that are very unforeseen. There was a point where I desperately needed support. I could not make peace with this was not going to work, and he had lied, and I was in this horrible position that I just belittled my ex-husband for putting me in, and it was just awful. And I went to my church and I actually got excommunicated for the affair. And then I told my family, and this is a very current situation. My family does not trust me to be around their children. And I look at life very differently, I feel like, than the average human being, but I'm grateful for it, even though it's brought a lot of difficulty and a lot of strain, because I can now look at a person who has done, quote, an awful thing, and I can see the grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the perspective. And I would have never saw that before, ever. I was the judgmental one. I was the righteous one. And I just can't live my life like that anymore. People are hurting.
How beautiful, first of all. Thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable and brave and being public with this story for the first time. That takes an enormous amount of self-awareness and courage and knowing your limits and knowing in the moment, okay, I'm going to let these words come out and maybe not these, and that's okay. That's actually also self-aware. And also what I don't sense, which I think is really beautiful, is there's not like I'm just spit shining this and putting a bow on it and looking for the rosy picture. It's not a pretty picture, right?
It was
messy.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I love what you said, when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the fire, you don't see the lesson, nor should you try. It's just not what we're wired to do.
It's not the time.
Supposed to be in it, right? And it's not till later. And as you said, it's still current. It's still playing out. There's still moments. It's still bringing tears. It's still, ooh, right? And I think that that's the process. It's a spiral upward. I love how you said it's not you go through hardship once and we're done, right? Like, we're going to be back here again. Right?
You go through it with everything else in life, with raising children. And with going to work, you and I were talking about this, keeping it together to be able to work, maintaining a household, like all of those things, they don't stop. My dog still needs fed. My water bill still needs paid. Mm-hmm. But it really brings a certainty that, number one, we can all survive a lot more than what we think we can. Number one, the resilience is unbelievable when we give the space for it. And number two, I really, truly, firmly believe that if people spoke more openly about their struggles with more curiosity and less judgment, that connection that we all desire and that we all require it would be so much more easily given than if we all hid the dirt and the messy and the ugly, which we all tend to do because we're afraid of the judgment.
We're afraid of, yeah, I think it's real. It's not only our own self-judgment, which you clearly talked
Absolutely.
about and showed us, but also you also talked about other judgment from others, and it's going to happen. We don't deserve that. And it's not comfortable, and relationships might break because of it, God willing, or get repaired, also God willing, right? But maybe, or change, either way. But I think that it does take courage, just quoting Brene Brown, to dare greatly, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, there's lots of things that I believe we actually fear, judgment being one of them. Success, like being judged for succeeding more than a family member once did, or having more, or doing more, or being more courageous, if that's what it is. Those are all things where people are going to bring out their pitchforks and torches. And to your point, like you said somewhere in there, it tells you more about their hurt and their journey and their tolerance for discomfort than yours. You're sitting here like wading through the discomfort, like, well, let's just talk about it. And they're going, oh God, no, let's just talk about the weather.
Yes,
or just get over it. Yeah.
One of the hardest things I ever had said to me, and I was like, what, was observing. So oh my gosh, I read so many things. The intellectual comes out when you're struggling and you're like, give me the book to read to help me with this. And so I've read, oh my gosh, Eckhart Tolle and Jay Shetty and just all these, brilliant minds. And one of the biggest takeaways I had was stop trying to run from it. Sit, serve, let it pass through you. And I was like, what do you mean let it pass through? It's like, just have it be go. But truly, when you just let yourself experience it, it's not only a lesson, but it helps formulate so many other important things in your life, like self-awareness, getting rid of that self-judgment, which, oh my gosh, I can't even explain to you the amount I carried and what it did to me. It did not do anything positive. It did nothing positive. But also creating loving boundaries. I was a boundaryless woman, and I didn't know I was a boundaryless woman. I was a boundaryless woman in my relationships. I experienced trauma bonds. I experienced lack of boundaries with some, parental abuse. There was a lot going on there that if I would have known and understood, there's worthiness there. You don't earn your worthiness, and you are allowed to have loving boundaries. People don't like that word. They don't like boundaries because they associate it with this negativity and this distancing. That's not what a boundary is at all. It's all about, no, I want to connect with you, but I want to connect in a way that is safe for me and it's safe for you. And there's no harm. And that's totally different. That took me so long. So I'm still learning that.
I know.
I know me. That's like a lifelong thing, I feel like. But at least now I know that I am worthy of that. And the people that I love and maybe don't love so much are also worthy of that.
No doubt. Love the phrase, boundaries are between me and me.
Well, I'm going to keep that one.
It's actually a rule for myself, and sometimes we need the word rule. We need that more strict black and white to it of this is how I'm willing to be related to and not. And it benefits me first because that's important, but it benefits you too. So we can connect, like you said, and it's safe. And sometimes that looks like a thick Sharpie line that feels like distance, but it's because for whatever reason, the two of us can't relate to each other in a way that's safe and not harming to one another.
Correct. Yeah. I'm experiencing that right now. And it's tough. It's tough because that the people that are not a fan of the boundaries, they don't necessarily mean harm either. I mean, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. In my circumstance, I don't think they do, but there has to be a line where you say, you know what? We have to agree to disagree. I still love you. You're still meaningful to me. But if we go further, this is going to harm me and it's going to harm you. And we're not going to connect.
Yeah.
And we're going to hurt relationships.
I feel like your point about sometimes they do mean harm is actually worth highlighting for a second, because people hurt people. Just to sum up and bring a cliche in on the compassion towards someone who is harming another. And what I want if anyone's getting confused about this, we're not making it okay that people are harming someone and we're just saying,
No,
oh, we forgive them, it's fine.
no,
It's definitely a tool that's within the human psyche and existence, and animals out in the world, the living beings, harm is a tool to reach for when you're hurting, when it feels like the only thing you have left.
armor.
It's armor. It's weaponry. It's not wrong. And if we like flip it for a second, it's happening to protect themselves or protect something they hold sacred. And that's where the compassion gets to come in and go. And even if that thing they're trying to protect is this irrational thing that isn't real or whatever it is, that's not the point. The point is it's actually an act of love for that reason.
Absolutely.
Having said that, it doesn't make it okay, right? And that's where boundaries come in.
Correct. And I'm gonna muck up what this person says, but I heard a long time ago, it's a form of lower intelligence to vilify, anyone and everyone around you that is quote unquote potentially doing the wrong thing or creating that pain. But it's a form of higher intelligence to get curious and to be able to empathize with their story. So again, you're not justifying it. You're not saying like you're allowed to do whatever you want because you've had pain in your past. No, but there's positive and there's negative to everyone. There's an angel and a demon is what they say, right? Angel and demon in all of us. And in order to see that, you have to get real with yourself for a moment and say, okay, I'm capable of this, and this. This person is as well. It's so easy to vilify certain people in certain stories. It's easy to vilify the adulterer. It's easy to vilify the husband that left. It's easy to vilify the woman who cheated. It's easy to vilify the church that kicked them out. It's so simple to go down that road, but it's so much harder to say, what were their stories and what are their perspectives? Like, why are they making the decisions that they're making, and to humanize it? And that's my goal for myself. I want to be that for my friends so that when they go through horrible things, Ashley is not going to be the one that says, well, here's what you have to do.
Should have done that.
Right. We're all looking for that person to say, I hear you. That really sucks. I'm so sorry. What do you need? That's what I wanted. I think that's what most people want. They just want to be heard. And they certainly don't want to be told how awful they are. It all goes back to that connection. It all goes back to that.
Goes back to that connection and that what is it? The human in me sees the human in you. All of those things of, the only judgment we pass on others is what we pass on ourselves. And if you say you're a compassionate caregiver or mother or friend, and then you're judging, it's not that you're not compassionate. It's just if there's any amount of let me fix you or tell you what to do or tell you why you did that wrong or whatever, especially when they're not asking for that, that is a departure from compassion for even but a moment, right? And it can break that connection and that trust really, really fast. And I think the tragic part is people think that's compassion. People think that that's love. That's probably a whole other podcast episode we need to do. But at the same time, but I think that all you can do is all you can do as yourself, right? You can only take responsibility for how you show up in the world. And we're not going to get it right every time, both in compassion and judgment. I think that, as you said, the angel and the demon are there, and that demon is there for protection. I was sitting this morning, I was telling you before we went live, like working through my own judgment, my own imposter syndrome, my own whatever it was this morning that came up, and sitting with the judge and going, well, God, you have horrible things to say. And I just asked myself, I got curious and was like, and how is that helping? Like helping with quotes around it, with asterisks around it, because logically it's not helping. Right. But at the same time, it has this loyal cry for why behind it. And when I was able to get curious and compassionate, I could see it. And I was like, well, I see why this thing that I am feeling that it's trying to judge me on and stop me from doing is actually so important. It's important. There's this importance underneath it. And it came down to, just to spoil the end of the movie, if you do that thing, you won't be worthy, right? Like it came down to that, like you said, like unraveling it down there was like, well, okay, maybe I don't need an army fighting for that because it's already there. But I think that when you can do that for yourself, when you have done that for yourself, and most importantly, when you've done it in relationship with someone else, whether that's in therapy or in coaching, with a client, with a
Mhm.
friend, with a family member, it seals the deal. And it validates that you're deserving of compassion because you're worthy, even when you do horrible things or you have a disease that nobody understands, that the world is teaching you is self-inflicted, whatever,
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I go backwards, and when I have those days where you're reflecting on everything that has happened in the past decade, I would have never picked any of it.
Mm.
Right?
Mm,
We're
right.
never gonna pick our refiner's fire because it's too much. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, and it's really hard for me to sometimes, and I think this is really common, for us to say the good about ourselves. But the one thing I can say with absolute certainty that I've gained over this decade is compassion. It is compassion for others. It's compassion for my patients and my clients, compassion for my friends, compassion for my family, because you don't gain that. I used to say this to my siblings all the time. If you come up to somebody and they lack compassion, they haven't lived through enough terrible things yet. Be happy for that. Be happy that they haven't had to experience some of the terror that you've had to experience, because it does. It humbles you. And if the world is lacking anything, it is certainly compassion. So I don't think we can overdo there, and just being real with people more often.
Mm-hmm. I mean, bringing it back to our very first conversation on looking at someone and saying, so how are you really feeling about this? Which they may not be equipped to answer. That may be the first time anyone's ever asked them that question, but that doesn't preclude you from trying, right? And I love this part about if they're lacking compassion, they haven't lived through enough, right? I would add, and they haven't processed it, because it's possible they have lived through, but they haven't processed it. And they haven't gone there, and they haven't acted like they've been in the fire, but they had on their fire suit. You know what I
Right?
mean? All their armor. And they're
Didn't
like,
quite burn them. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
and like the same things keep repeating, right? And they're armored up with so much judgment that they don't go inward, and there's no shame for not going inward and doing the work and all those things, because also that's super uncomfortable, as we were talking about, and we were taught not to do that. We're not going to talk
It
about it, and
is.
we're going to pretend it's not there. I'm going to put it under the rug, and just move on. And I
Yes, ma'am.
think that for some people, their journey is they never will. That's okay. Not in this lifetime, right? And that's okay. We can only wish that everyone does, but at the same time, that's okay. And I think that I love what you said about you can't choose your refiner's fire. Can you imagine if there was like this vending machine that was like, well, if you want to get over there, you're going to have to go through and process through all these things. So just pick your poison. Do you want it to be divorce? Do you want it to be cancer? Do you want it to be infidelity? Would you like it to be death of a family member? Which one would you like? It's probably going to be all of them, by the way, or
Right.
some shape or form of relational rupture, betrayal of trust, disease, and death of someone you love, right? Like we all get these lessons, and they are going to hit us in different ways at different times. And I mean, it's just a matter of, are you equipped and resourced and supported enough to sink into it and be in it and process it, or not? And can we be those people for other people when they're in the midst of their muck too?
Absolutely. And I now believe, which I don't think I believed before, I now believe that we get the lessons that we need.
Mm-hmm.
And however, whatever you believe in, I'm a very spiritual person. I do believe firmly with everything inside of me that all of that happened. I don't want to say for a reason. I want to say for my benefit.
Yeah.
Because it helped me grow, and it helped me break out of the shell that I was born into and that I was raised to be. And again, when I think about it, it's really hard to, not be angry about some of that. But when you get that perspective, and when you start looking at other people's stories, it's a lot easier to show a little bit of compassion. Now, does that mean you have to be super close with people who have harmed you? No, I think that's a personal choice, but it does mean forgiveness, which is freedom. And it also means, again, embracing your worthiness and
Yeah.
understanding like you don't earn that.
Yeah. I feel like anger is one of the lessons I've learned is anger is Speaking of being a highly sensitive person, like the
Mhm.
moment, now that I'm aware of it, which took years to become aware of it, but now that I'm aware of it, I'm like, this is an invitation, first and foremost, for self-compassion. Like there is something here that I'm feeling angry about that means a boundary of mine has been breached that I didn't even know I needed to set, or a need is not being met, or a want is not being met, or something I'm worthy of is not being provided to me, whether by myself or someone else.
Right.
And it's like the ultimate invitation. It's the ultimate doorway to me. I'm like, ooh, anger. So glad it's here. Thank you for
I
coming.
love that word, invitation.
It's the
That is
ultimate invitation,
spot on.
especially for women who are cultured against it, right? And it's wrong and it's bad and it makes you immoral, whatever. And I feel like once you can then shore up what it is that you need or want that's not being met or whatever, then you get to then kind of do with that anger what you need to do, right? In order to set a boundary with another person or extend compassion or both. It's like also the ultimate invitation to maintaining connection
With yourself
with
and
yourself and someone else. And how that connection shows up in the 3D world might change, but it's all in service to the deep want of connection.
Mhm, mhm. I've struggled lately with that phrase like morality
Mm.
because I thought I knew what it meant, and that has been thrown at me by some very close people in my life. You've lost your morals. You're immoral. And I've thought about that so much. Morality, I think, is having the wisdom to see the greater good. And I think most people struggle with that because of what we're conventionally taught. And again, it is certainly not an excuse for poor choices, poor behavior, harming other people. Of course not. But morality, being able to see the greater good, I think that gets misconstrued a lot with always, quote unquote, doing the right thing.
Mhm.
The same things. And I think if more people took that jump, and again, I'm certainly saying this from my own life experience, I would have never said this before, but I think whenever we open our hearts to that, not even just discomfort, like that imperfection of making choices and following through with those choices, I think when we open our hearts to that and again get curious and do all the things that we've talked about, observe and kind of figure out like why we're making the choices that we are, I think that brings a lot more to the conversation than just this is good, this is bad, and that's it. And that's how I'm going to raise my daughter. I want my daughter to come to me with everything.
Mhm.
The reality is she's not going to, but I want her to know that I'm her mother. Yes, I'm the one that's supposed to teach her. I'm supposed to teach her worthiness. I'm supposed to teach her morality, of course. But when she messes up, I want to be that person that she comes to.
Mhm.
And you can't be that person if you're the person throwing around judgment. And I will be fought on that, I'm sure, by many people that watch this, or if any of my relatives watch this. The reality is judgment creates distance. It creates distance, and connection and curiosity that creates unending love, in my opinion. So
We're just going to quote her all day. Brené's quote of shame loves lying, hiding, and secrecy, and judgment creates shame, right? And so there you go. Someone's going to lie. They're going to hold it secret. They're going to hide. They're going to disconnect. They're going to withdraw. They're going to probably do something worse, and it it just perpetuates the
absolutely.
thing. It perpetuates the mess up, whatever
Yeah.
that is.
And let's just talk about what that does in your body too. Like I have zero doubts that my autoimmune conditions are from
Yeah.
my life experiences, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, that it's toxic. It's poison to the
Mhm.
soul.
Mhm.
So being open, I think, man, if that could become a trend, I feel like the connection that would come from that would be unreal. And
Yeah.
we would all be better for it.
We would all be better for it. It's going to take a pretty heavy lift. Not that it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible, but it's got to be just like a magic wand of humility that's like swept over the world, where everyone's like, yeah, let me process out my fire now.
Humility.
Gosh, the therapists of the world would become like millionaires. But I
Right.
think that's just to bring it to our work. We are playing a role in that for people of offering compassionate space, offering someone who's listening, and in the way, shape, and form that we do, right? And it doesn't have to look like constantly dragging through your childhood trauma. It can look like feeling seen today as well. And that can go very far for a lot of people.
100%.
And on that segue, speaking of the work, you have mentioned you work with women, you help them in their bodies, from anything pelvic floor, chronic pain, bowel, bladder, lymphedema. It's intimate and vulnerable territory.
Indeed.
Brings with it all kinds of stories and experiences. I'm curious, with all we've talked about, less of the actual expertise, and let's talk about that. How does your experience of seeing the signals coming from your body and learning them and learning what sensitivities, like things that you just pick up without even realizing, and things you've even reframed as information versus some disease you need to fix, right? And quiet. How does that shape how you show up for women who are struggling with any number of body issues? At least that's what they come to you with first.
It has completely changed how I practice. Completely changed. It takes a lot of the, I'm going to say intellectual part out, because the reality is one of my favorite things to say to my ladies is your body is speaking. Like, yes, there is a collection of symptoms here. Yes, you are here to get said symptoms addressed, but it encourages me that when women walk in with the train wreck of a presentation, right, that we're seeing more and more often this day and age, I no longer get the overwhelm in my body that I had gotten previously as a younger clinician. And I don't think it's because I have gotten, so much smarter over the years. I think it's because I'm finally understanding individually what that feels like. And it allows me to translate to my patient and again, be compassionate to what she's feeling, because it's presenting as symptoms, but there's always something underlying. There's always something, whether it is a mom of 3 young children who is, not taking the time or doesn't feel like she can take the time to care for her physical body, or if it is someone who has walked in with a significant history of trauma and abuse, or if it is someone that just doesn't feel like this is a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's a little bit of incontinence. What's the problem? Everybody gets older. I hear that a lot too. Allowing us to move outside of the body and I guess witness how people manifest their life experiences. That's what has changed my practice. I no longer lead with the laundry list of questions that we're supposed to ask everybody, which, you have to ask some questions to get history, of course. But my questions often kind of get pushed to the side, the questions that I know I need to ask, especially like past history questions. A lot of the times my goal is to set up an environment where I don't have to ask. They feel comfortable enough to tell me. They feel safe enough to tell me. And that's when I feel like I am actually providing a needed service versus, just physical therapy or just coaching or, all of the, like you said, hats that we wear. It's about so much more than that. When these people are being heard, when they feel safe, they transform way more than anything I could do.
And they might tell you the thing, to your point, about their trauma history, that because they feel safe, that no intake form where it's like, do you have a history of trauma? Yes or no? Or if you even ask the question, sometimes it's very confronting. And if you've led with human to human, and I just want to hear your story. I want to hear the story the way you feel like you want to tell it, without this laundry list of when did it start, how long, how does it feel? We need to know those things, but I feel like you only need to reach for those when something's missing, right? Or it's sort of like, I'm not just seeing the picture and I need more so I can actually help you in a helpful way. But sometimes people need to drag through the story for a while.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I think that's totally okay. And for some people, they want that cerebral part. They want you to be like, tell me what to do. And I am one of those people. If I'm going to somebody, I would love if they told me just what to do and make me feel better. But again, the more the further I get into my 40s, the more I find that we already have the answers. We really do. We're not looking for more.
We're not looking for more information or diagnoses or tricks. I mean, sometimes you need the diagnoses. You need the validation that what you're experiencing is real. And here is
Correct.
what it is. Because those labels, while we opened this talking about no labels, those labels give your soul and your body and your brain a place to land that says this is not in your head. It's not inconquerable. Because then there's also something you can do about it, right?
It's empowering. Yes.
Very empowering to a point until it becomes hyper intellectualized and becomes armor.
It becomes our definition. It becomes our goal.
Yeah. The identity.
Yes. Yes. I talk about that a lot with my younger patients. It's so easy to make symptoms your identity or diagnosis your identity. And that's really what I want to avoid. In the past, I would say 5 years of being a clinician and a newer health coach, the identity serves nothing. It really doesn't. It gives that moment of validation, which I 100% believe in, but to further continue to connect with that diagnosis or those symptoms, I think it's a huge detriment to the healing journey, because now we're coming out of our body. We need to stay in the body.
No doubt. I feel like that's been a huge journey of mine personally, and my own medical journey is de-identifying with things. And I feel like actually there's an added layer of complication of being a woman in healthcare, where we were trained to label and diagnose and fix and solve. It showed up in someone who might have been programmed or conditioned to kind of latch onto that anyway. And now I'm a completely different person around these types of things and providers. If I'm labeled immediately or mislabeled or hyper managed because of a past medical history item, I'm out. I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Yes, I've experienced this as well in both ways. So I was that person that needed that diagnosis because I needed the validation. But the farther I get from the actual diagnoses, the less I can be in that world. So, and I'm just going to say it because we know it's true. Support groups, I avoid. Going online and saying, this is a day in the life of a woman with Hashimoto. I don't want to do that, because I know to a degree that could support other women. However, I don't want to carry that identity because it's misleading. It's misleading. Yes, it's there. Yes, it's a part of what is going on right now, but it's not who I am. It's not who I am. And the more I distance myself from that, I feel my nervous system letting go.
Right.
That's how you know you're going in the right direction.
Right.
But the more rabbit holes I would go down, my goodness, my fight or flight was way up here and it wasn't serving me. I've said this to so many of my patients. It doesn't serve you to go down the rabbit holes to find the golden ticket. There is no golden ticket. It serves you get that validation, and then let's start looking inward. Let's start looking at daily practice too. Daily practice is where change is going to happen, not like with some weird, supplement or regime that we've made up.
The regime.
The regime.
Yes, absolutely. Man, with the version of you who became a clinician 20 something, ish years ago, right? Going on 20. Before you went through all you went through, also knowing that you had to walk through that to become to learn these lessons, these rich, beautiful things. So it's not like we can just tell a 22 or 25-year-old, here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
Don't mess up. But if there was one thing you could whisper to her, piece of wisdom, little piece of just here's a little carrot I'm going to dangle for you, what would it be?
This is when I'm going to cry. I thought about this last night. This is one thing that I reflected on. I told you I won't reflect because I want what comes out.
Love that.
I would have told myself two things. I would have told myself, number one, you don't need to earn love. Stop doing that. And I would have told myself, number two, trust that feeling. Trust it, because it's always right. It's always right. And we call whatever we want to call it, the gut feeling, people have intuition. They have many different names, but When I look back, my body was always the telltale sign. It was always the telltale sign in my childhood, in my young adolescence, in my clinical years. It was always the sign, and I did not trust it.
Your
And I
body
would,
is correct.
it's always correct.
Always.
It's always correct.
I know. And just to our point of mislabeling, it's where the label can really steer us astray as medical providers, but also just as people who exist is, you mentioned it's like the autoimmune condition. You see the underpinnings, right? The energetic, the emotional, the spiritual underpinnings there, which also you couldn't have seen without walking through the fire in the dark.
Definitely.
And how many times did something get labeled as a physical problem? How many times have we done it to our patients too, Huge lesson to learn.
Yeah.
And there wasn't an opportunity for the story to be told beyond the symptoms, the signs, the tests, the measures, the diagnosis, the treatment. I like it's like your body, it's your soul knocking. It's sort of like, hi, hello, can I get a word in?
Mhm.
And yes, I mean, we're not saying every physical condition, you get strep throat, you get like a disease that's because the guy next to you was sick on the plane. Like that's not a
But there's always
spiritual crisis.
imbalance, right?
Exactly.
There's imbalance. Your body is speaking to you, hey, I was vulnerable to this.
Yes,
I was
exactly.
vulnerable to this. So I feel like there's always communication happening. But no, I would have never saw that had I not gone through my own, as well as did it to many patients, which I feel like I would be remiss to not point that out in my early clinical years. Like, we're taught to come out of school borderline arrogant.
Mm.
We're taught to come out and have that authority of you went to school, you learned this, you are the expert. And I've gotten so much farther away from that because I don't like seeing that in other clinicians. I do not like when clinicians approach their patients authoritatively. I mean, we do need some semblance. Situations arise, that's in every workspace where we need to bring up
There
the
is a
authority.
power dynamic going on.
There's a little bit.
It is there. It has to happen.
Men and women,
Yeah.
so I got to put that hat on sometimes, in certain circumstances with the men, but and with some women.
Mm.
But again, I feel like that has shifted dramatically in my practice, dramatically, because if I can't sit in front of a person and say, you know what, I don't know, let me read a little bit about that and get back to you, or I do know this person and they're phenomenal with that, let me send you their way. If I don't have the self-awareness to do that, I would not consider anyone a good advocate, clinician or otherwise, practitioner, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to be advocating for your person. That's part of the job. I did not have that in the beginning.
I know. The only thing that I'm really grateful for, coming back to our very first conversation, was I worked with kids. And you have a 9-year-old. 9 was one of my favorite ages, by the way. I couldn't get anywhere. I couldn't get to the asking the clinical questions on a PT evaluation unless I took the time and the energy to, the word is establish rapport, but truly to be like, hey, we are friends, me and this 9-year-old, she trusts me.
Yes.
And I had the magic touch of getting kids to come out of their shell, the shyest kids, the most defiant kids, the kids who were like, no, I'm not talking. Right. And like, I feel like that has carried me forward in all the different iterations of work I do. So there was some luck there, in a way, like maybe I chose it on purpose because I was already curious about people.
Skills, certainly.
But you're right about, I mean, once I got through there, I was like, all right, we're going to do all these tests and we're going to I'm going to sit and explain to you what all these things are and give you your prescription of exercise and therapy and manual things and blah, blah, blah. And there was I look back with such compassion, right? On how much I was getting from that myself. Like, oh, I feel so powerful and smart and I'm the accomplished one and I'm certain and look at me, I'm the doctor now. And also like, it was so satisfying. And then it became heavy, right? Would you agree? It's sort of like, this is exhausting.
Oh, for me, it was a total reflection of how I was raised, like that validation through accolades, that validation through whatever you want to call it, love, adoration, all of that. I see that now,
Yeah.
but I did not see that before.
Yeah.
And it does get heavy. It's exhausting.
Well, because people don't work like that. At the end of the
No.
day, like people want you, even if they don't have the words for it or the wherewithal to answer the question, so how are you actually feeling about this? Something in there, they want to be seen as a human. Even if it's a 9-year-old where I'm saying, hey, let's just talk about Taylor Swift for a little bit before we even get going, you know? And she's like, oh my God, you're the coolest, right?
Yes.
That's seeing someone as a human and actually bringing it back to the very beginning. That's not small talk. I didn't ask her about the weather, or maybe I did. Right. And we talked about how we both got caught in a rainstorm one time and it was fun, actually. And we enjoyed splashing in the puddles. That's human. Right. Yeah.
Connection.
What a great full circle way this conversation just went. I love when that happens. All right. Speaking of fun and speaking of connection and speaking of not small talk, although it kind of is.
Oh boy.
Our final segment is the lightning round, which are 5 seemingly innocuous questions.
Okay.
And your job, I love that you didn't prepare for this anyway, but your job is to go with your gut.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be life-changing answers, although some of the questions are kind of deep.
Okay.
Okay, so 5 questions. You ready for them?
Ready.
All right, number 1. If you could be any animal other than a human, what would it be and why?
I've answered this before. I would totally be a dog, and it's because I want to experience complete unconditional love.
I know, because you're worthy of it. Me too.
I want somebody to like scratch my ears and just want to rub on me all day.
Right? Oh my gosh, my dogs. When I was on the couch with the journal and the tears and the things this morning, both dogs were in my lap, you know, totally there, just like, hey, we got you.
Yeah, I want somebody to love me because I'm like fuzzy and cute.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. If you could get a beverage of any kind with 2 people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Oh man, Brene Brown has to be one. She has to be one. I would really love to meet Jay Shetty.
Yeah.
I would love to meet him. I would love to pick his brain. I'd want Brene on one side, Jay on the other side.
That would be a powerful conversation. Yeah.
I would be crying for the rest of the week, but yeah, I would love.
So good. Amazing. Okay. Brene Brown and Jay Shetty, if you're listening, please bring
This comes full
Ashley onto
circle.
your podcast.
Wheeling, West Virginia.
Amazing. All right, number 3. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No.
Is it all sweet and salty mixture? Not a fan, or fruit and?
I'm not a fan of like I'm going to say like sweetened meat, but something about putting sweet on pizza doesn't resonate.
What about like fig jam? You know, those pizzas that are like.
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Or like sweet balsamic. I could do that.
Some more the fruity, maybe. Yeah. That's my favorite question. It's very polarizing. It's always a yes or a no. I think I've had 2 people who are like, maybe. I don't know. I don't care. You know, whatever. No real preference. Anyway, I'm team yes for what it's worth, but
Really?
I can see why it's a no. I'm like, yeah, I totally get that.
To be wishy-washy would be the red flag for me.
Exactly.
You have to pick.
You gotta know. All right. Number 4. I'm a fly on the wall at your house on a Friday night. What's going on?
You would totally be laughing. Okay, so my daughter stays with her father on Friday nights. So that is my night to not cook.
Nice.
Yeah, I am gluten-free very recently. So I usually get something like a burger with no bun, not super exciting, but I get my food out. I bring it home. I read a book that's not intellectual because I never do that. And then I would show you, but it's a disaster over there. I have, you're going to laugh. I have a PEMF mat. I don't know if you have one.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So now that the light is, going down later, I would take a walk around my neighborhood. I would come home. I would take a hot shower. I would lay on my PEMF mat and I would have all my candles on. Remember, I live alone, single mom. I can do these things. All my candles on. And I would totally be either, if it's been a crazy long day, Friends would be on in the background.
Yes.
And if it's been like a decent day where I feel rejuvenated, I would be listening to some sort of podcast while I lay on my PEMF mat and do my lower extremity mobility and I call them my lovey-dovey stretches, where like it's just good, like things that I don't get to do throughout the day.
What a joyful and like so you like ritual situation. This is amazing.
I love it so much. And as the weather gets nicer, that would all take place on my enclosed patio, which is my favorite place in the house. Yes. So not exciting. That is my evening jam. That is what I live for.
Ashley, I'm very excited by this. I think it's very sexy.
I'm so glad.
This sounds amazing. I want to kick my husband out and be like, get out. We're going to put up the candles. We're going to lay on the mat.
Time.
Amazing. All right. Final question. You might have already told us, but what is a hidden pleasure or obsession of yours that people might find surprising, weird, quirky, or questionable?
So many quirky things, but I love to dance. I'm a salsa dancer. So if I had the opportunity, I would be doing it like on a weekly basis. But again, I live in Wheeling, West Virginia. So I do not have the opportunity, but yeah, I don't know if that's quirky, but I'm like a wannabe Latina. Like I am a white girl mishmash, but yeah, I think that's probably why I married a Latin man. I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So maybe some salsa by yourself, which is kind of weird, but on Friday night.
Yeah, I totally.
Why not?
Music, big thing. Big fan.
Amazing.
Big fan. Usually more so when I'm like driving and then I get myself in trouble because I start to drive fast because I'm dancing in the car many times.
There's the spicy side. I love this. It's like moderate spice,
Handful of tickets, probably more than that.
I'll bring it to morality. I mean, nobody died. I'm not advocating for driving unsafely, but I mean, you were fully living.
I agree.
You were fully alive in that moment, which, I advocate for. Sometimes rules are suggestions. I'm glad you were safe.
They probably saw me dancing. That's probably why they,
Yeah. They're probably like, this is going to be a good one. Did you tell them? Were you like, so sorry, I was kind of dancing?
I used to try to get out of tickets and I don't anymore because I never get out of them. Ever. So I'm just like, yep, I know what I was doing. Okay, where do I sign? And that's it.
Can we just get on with this?
Yeah. I got things to do.
It's fair. Again, just owning who you are. I love that. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your story and the wisdom that's in your story and the vulnerability and just who you are with the world. I'm so grateful that you are here. Tell us one more thing. How do we stay in touch? What's coming up for you? What do you want me to put in the show notes that people can click on if they feel connected to you? So I work for WVU Medicine. That's my full-time job as a public or physical therapist. But my passion job, my hopefully one day full-time job is Feminine and Flourishing. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. I specialize in peri and postmenopausal women. And I'm going to say micro specialty is autoimmune conditions because that's what I have. Because you've been there. Yeah, I've been there and I'm going to be there. That is my cup of tea. Goals for 2026 is to start my own podcast. That is absolutely terrifying to me. So we'll see how that goes. I do not have a website to share with you quite yet because, again, side hustle for now is the health thing. That is also a 2026 goal. Awesome. Yes. So hopefully those will be coming down the pike. If you'd like to get a hold of me, I prefer email and or text. Amazing. So, yeah. Very good. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that out loud or if I send you that later. You can send it to me later. Yeah, for sure. I don't know who's listening. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. It's been such a pleasure. I don't know about who the we are, whoever's listening will cheer you on in 2026. Thank you. Awesome.